people in power, whether red or blue, they could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country before it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country before it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country before it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country before it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is that most wonderful time of the week where I get to take a little break from work and spend that time with you, right? Grab a cup of coffee, another cup of coffee, and, talk about what's going on, what's on my mind, and take your questions. And, man, this is a doozy, right? The big show, the balloon has gone up. The Texas legislative session has started. And tonight we're going to talk about a little bit of perspective. I have seen some chatter out there, and it appears to me that there are an awful lot of people who do not understand the legislative process and the calendar and all the things that go along with this, this exercise that we go through every 2 years. And we're gonna take a look at it from a Texas or a Texit perspective tonight, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the calendar. Right, we got to talk about the progress of Texit, what that's going to look like moving forward through the legislative session. I'm going to commend many of you for doing great work before the start of the session because it is showing. And of course, I'll take your questions. So before we get started, let me just welcome all of the new folks. Hang on, I got to get resituated in my chair, man. I was like, I'm not going to lie. I've been a little busy today. Right. So I'm getting into my chair. I'm like, whew, it's break time. But it's not. It's break time for you guys, but work time after that. Anyway, for all the people that are here for the first time, my name is Daniel Miller. I'm president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. It is that time in the middle of the week where I take a break from working for Texas independence and grab another cup of coffee, sit down here, fire up the camera, and visit with you guys. Get off my chest what needs to get off my chest and answer your questions. And that's going to be a great one. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started and talk about some of the wonderful things that have been happening over the week. Chat, questions, for those of you that are old hat, you know where to do that, right? But if you are watching us on either of the Facebook pages, drop your question in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, either of the YouTube channels, drop your question in chat on either of those channels. And be sure tonight to use hashtag Texit. We're doing that thing again. Kara came in and said, hey, 2 swag bags. I said, okay. And now I'm saying use hashtag Texit to be entered to win. There's a little random draw thing on here. And if you comment on either of those places using hashtag Texit, you're going to be entered to win. It'll randomly draw you out. We'll give you some Texas swag. Pretty cool stuff. There's some vintage T&M gear in there. I have taken a peek in some of the mystery bags. There's some vintage T&M swag in there, like some things that we don't produce anymore that are highly sought after. Plus, there's some cool, new stuff and things of that nature. So the swag bags are super cool. All right. Well, look, as I said, we're gonna tear off into this tonight. I've got a lot on my mind, and I'm gonna tell you, there's been developments, not just legislatively, right, but over the Facebook lawsuit, even within the last hour. I'm not gonna spill the beans yet till I get clearance from the attorney, but it's pretty exciting news. Not that anything's going to be more exciting than the potential to pivot this case or AKA basically make Facebook eat a big bowl of crap because they've come after the Texit issue. They've come after the constitutionality and legality of Texit. If you don't know what that's all about, go back and watch Coffee Talk last week. Read the article on the website at tnm.me. But this is a big one. One, frankly, that I was not expecting. I was hoping for, but was not expecting. And hopefully we'll have news to share with you between now and the next Coffee Talk. And then, we'll talk about that. But it's a biggie. And I'm pretty excited about it. Hoping to get all the details when I get off of here tonight. I'll get fully briefed on it, I'm sure, this evening. But that being said, let's continue on. The news of the day, right, is the legislative session. We had the kickoff of the legislative session yesterday, and then today there was a big brouhaha. I mean, a big amount of controversy over the rules debate, and it's shaping up to be, oddly enough, a bit of a contentious legislative session between the grassroots and the political establishment. So we're gonna take a we'll be talking about that and unpacking that more as we get moving along. But obviously, we got to keep the main thing, and the main thing is Texas. So we gotta make sure that we're doing everything we can to get that bill across the finish line, so that Texans like us can have a vote on Texas in November of 2023. Now, there was a bit of a contest. We talked about this several weeks back. We knew that Dade Phelan, Speaker of the House, was going to have a challenger in Tony Tinderholt. He challenged him at the Republican caucus meeting and continued his challenge through to the opening day of the legislative session. Now, interestingly enough, let me just let you guys know, if you did not already, everyone who wound up at the Capitol had to enter into the building and had to take a look at this. Yes, that is our banner flying over the Capitol again on opening day. And, we sent them a message that very same way, right on Election Day in November, that Texas was coming. There it was. There were plenty of Texas supporters there at the Capitol that were there on their own, and many people have asked, why didn't the TNM do something, organize something on opening day? And I'll tell you, the vast majority of our work that is done before the session starts and will be done after all the dust clears in this first couple of days, this first week. And it's just the way things are. We used to do opening day things until we figured out that was not the most effective use of the organization's resources, to spin a bunch of people up, have them dump a bunch of money in to go in an organized fashion. There will be time for that, right? That time is coming. But we're playing it very smart this session. We're taking everything that we have learned over all the previous sessions, and we're being very, very deliberative with what we do. And I will tell you, so much of the work in the Texas legislature isn't really done, by mass numbers at the Capitol. Now, it helps, right? There are times when it helps. But as we have stated, the strategy that we talked about, last session, which is spinning up in these districts ahead of the legislative session, letting these people know during the campaign season what it is that we wanted, what you wanted, because you're a constituent of that representative or that senator, and making sure that we have had those conversations with these folks on our particular issue, being very focused, very disciplined, is beginning to pay dividends. And it was great to hear Dr. Kortrup when we had our consultation. If you don't know who he is, you can go back and look at the previous coffee talk. There's a webinar on our YouTube channel where you can watch him talk about an examination, essentially, of what we're doing from a guy who's been there, done that, got the T-shirt 16 or 17 times over with independence movements around the world. And interestingly enough, that's one of the things that he talked about, was it's really about the pressure. I saw someone post in chat ahead of the live stream, essentially a paraphrase of what we talked about. If a politician is a windsock, then you have to be the wind. But sometimes you got to make sure that you kind of grease up the windsock on the pole. Some of these guys are super recalcitrant, and the feedback that I've gotten from those that did go to opening day is that the vast majority did not get to spend any substantial time with legislators. They talked with staff, and hopefully you were all very, very polite to those staffers. And it was a lot of sort of the same questions that we get. And I'm actually going to talk about that tonight. Some of you have sent in some of those questions via Coffee Talk, and I'm going to show you where you can find that information. But that being said, be ready, right? I mean, there are definite mass actions that we are going to do. Some of them are going to be at the Capitol. One in particular at the beginning of March, and I'm not going to tell you what that is, but those of you that have been to leadership training probably already have an idea of what that's going to be and when it's going to be. But a lot of those mass actions are going to take place in your district or on your phone. in the T&M app or on your phone or at your computer or at their district offices, right? Or something in your town. Those mass actions, by and large, are going to be something that you can do right where you are. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. That said, there has been some indication that there are some out there that do not understand still how the legislative process works. Okay. What the timeline is. And I can tell you, I know this because I get emails, I get social media messages, I get all these things. What's the bill number? Well, the bill number doesn't get a bill number until it's officially filed. Well, has it been filed? No, it hasn't. If it has been filed, I guarantee you when it is, we will not keep it a secret. Everyone and their dog will know it, and probably the media first, because at this time of the year, they set bill alerts and they see those bills come in. They may know it before I know it, right? I mean, that's how quick things happen on their end when they're watching. Well, people will say, well, why hasn't it been filed? The session's already started. Well, they started pre-filing bills at the beginning. This is not an easy task. You guys many of you probably don't know that we are still quibbling over some language that was in 1359 last session. We're still trying to perfect it. The bill that wound up getting filed last session was not the ideal bill, and we have to make sure that we want to get it done. Well, there are people that are running around like their hair's on fire. We have to get it done. Why is it not done? And it's like email after email. It's like, guys, come on. Do you even know? Well, they've already started. I mean, what's going to happen is okay. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to take a little time, and I'm going to show you some things that you may or may not know related to the legislative calendar. So yesterday was the opening day of the session. Okay, so constitutionally, right, according to the Texas Constitution, yesterday was the opening day of the legislative session, and the clock began to tick. 140 days. Okay, tick, tock. 140 days. But what most people don't understand is that constitutionally, there are limits on what the legislature can do at this very moment, right? So I'm going to give you the first one. And here's what I want you to do. If you're one of those people that has an analog calendar or an alarm on you want to set an alarm on your phone or put it on your calendar on your computer or write it on a grease board on the wall or go get it tattooed on your arm. I don't care how you do it, but mark this down, right? Because this is pretty doggone important. This is, my friends, that document we refer to as the Texas Constitution. Article 3 covers the legislature, or as the Constitution calls it, the legislative department. I wonder how people would behave if we quit referring to it as the Texas legislature and just started calling them the legislative department. That'd be fun. But Section 5 covers the meetings of the legislature and the order of business. And so you see right there, Section 5A, the legislature shall meet every 2 years. Okay. So right there that we are 140 days every other year. But here's the calendar. Here's what I want you to understand about how that 140 days is broken up. And this is really the first milestone and the first thing that people do not understand. When convened in regular session, which this is, the first 30 days thereof shall be devoted to the introduction of bills and resolutions, acting upon emergency appropriations, passing upon the confirmation of the recess appointees of the governor, and such emergency matters as may be submitted by the governor in special messages to the legislature. Okay, so what that is the governor's emergency priorities. Okay, so let's just take it out of constitutionalese and let's talk about what this means effectively. What this means is for the first 30 days, not much happens. So even if the bill was filed today, even if we had got it filed in pre-filing, nothing happens. Nothing. Unless you expect that the governor would refer to it as an emergency priority that he would declare in his State of the State address that he's going to give. So from January the 10th, the clock started ticking. 30 days. So you want to know why last session, everyone was madder than a wet hen at Dade Phelan for waiting until like the third week of January to appoint his committee chairs. That's why. Not that those committees could have done anything, but people were ready to start, I guess lobbying the committees, whatever that is. But ultimately, 30 days after the start of the legislative session, until anything really substantive outside of those issues that were just laid out gets done, right? So you've got those first 30 days to introduce the bills, right? That's the official filing window. And then, dealing with the emergency matters. And that's going to be ultimately up to the governor. The governor will set those priorities, and he will designate some emergency items that will probably be revealed in his State of the State address. And those are ones that can be tackled in the first 30 days, and nothing else gets tackled. Nothing. So, if we don't have committees, which we don't, because, it's just not time yet. Even if you had them, they wouldn't be meeting because no first reading of bills gets to happen. Those things don't get assigned to committees until those first 30 days are up. So super, super important. Well, then, okay. Well, what happens if you don't get it done in the first 30 days, right? Well, you actually get to still file bills because the bill filing deadline is 60 days, the 60th day of the session. Okay. March 11th will be the 60th day of the session, and that is the unrestricted bill filing deadline. So you want to talk about pacing yourselves. I would, nothing would make me happier than to go ahead and get whoever to file it, but there's a lot of maneuvering going on in the legislature right now. The fight over the speaker and the fight over the Democrat chairs has created a tremendous amount of unrest and unsettle inside the Texas House. And we're not even talking about, we haven't even gone over talking about the Senate side, right? So we are definitely working. I mean, we've got former legislators working with us to help us get this done. We've pulled together a legislative team with people that have major legislative and political experience. I mean, it's happening. And just because you don't see us hooping and hollering on the first day of the session doesn't mean that we haven't got a tremendous amount accomplished. And, don't judge by what you don't see. Okay. It's the calendar. I mean, it's the I don't know any other way to put it, right? Let's take a look at questions real quick, see what we got. Okay, let me do this. Thank you to Eric Riddle for your super chat, sir. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. If you have an opportunity to drop a super chat or head over to tnm.me/donate, help support the effort. It's going to be fun. Here it is. John Boggiano says politicians like windsocks can be moved by a strong enough wind. Time for a Texas hurricane. Absolutely. That time is nigh. And here's the thing: if folks had been heeding what we've been talking about, really since the end of the primaries, engaging with these legislators would already be done. And so, and I could tell that some of it's already been done, and we'll talk. Like I said, we'll talk about that here in a minute. Shelby has a question. Shelby wants to know, how are we going to fight the rules? Well, you don't fight the rules at this point. I was talking to a legislator the other day, and one of the things that we talked about was that elections have consequences. And I know it sounds pretty cliche, but the trajectory of this was set at the end of the last legislative session. Really and truly at the end of the last election, the election prior to the last session, right? This trajectory was set. That's when the hard work gets done. And I'm going to tell you, it's one of the reasons that I wrote that section in my book. I don't have a copy of it here, but it's one of the reasons I wrote that section in the book about short-term thinking, right? And political amateurism. People don't understand the way that this cycle is, and they don't understand that it is a not necessarily a long game. It is a long game, but when it comes to these issues, it's sort of an intermediate game. If our legislature met full time and the elections were a little bit closer together, then it might not be that much of a problem. But you have 140 days every other year, okay? And so that means the fight for the next legislative session is probably already brewing. I mean, I know it is. We're already out there recruiting, vetting, and preparing to train candidates. I mean, that's happening. We've already been in talks with people that are considering challenging state reps and state senators that are that may not support Texas in this session. And the rationale for that is not because of some knee-jerk thing that happened recently. The rationale for that is that we're looking forward past winning a Texas vote, because the people that are against Texas don't need to be in office after the people vote for us to leave. That's one of the biggest takeaways from Brexit is you can't ever leave the Ramoners in place, right? So the best way to deal with that is take care of it now. There's a lot of strategic reasons for that sort of thing. But the question is, how do you fight the rules? And the fact of the matter is that how you fight the rules is you have better, if you don't like the rules, then you got to have better legislators. That's just it. The legislator that I was speaking to the other day said people they expect conservative things out of the legislature, but they unfortunately elect people that are probably not as conservative as they think they are. And so, you don't like the rules, that ship has sailed. The fact of the matter is that what you have to contend with right now are the rules that are on the table. Sometimes you got to play the hand that you're dealt, and you got to find a way to win. Sometimes, and I understand how some of you out there could be super discouraged by things that are going on, but understand the vast majority of the things that you have seen transpire over the last 48 hours, if we do the things that we need to do, may have almost no impact on our success. I mean, it'd be nice to have better legislators, I'm not going to lie, but let's be honest. Some of the people that maybe some of our friends would hail as liberty champions are not big fans of Texas. I mean, that's just the way it is. And some of the people that we may not consider some champions of liberty or conservative champions or whatever you want to call them are turning out to be bigger fans than anyone anticipated. So interesting dynamic. But I'm just going to implore you guys to keep the main thing. I can't say that enough. I understand how difficult it can be for people to comprehend how ridiculous this process can be. It is for me. But at the end of the day, your options are you fight through it, or you give up, curl up in an embryo, suck your thumb, and then let your children and grandchildren fight this battle because you gave up. And if you haven't learned it about me yet, I don't quit. I just don't. So it's the way it works. All right, let me do this. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot. So one of the things that I think was kind of interesting during the opening of the session was oddly enough, this nominating speech that Cody Harris gave for Dade Phelan, which I don't know that anyone had that on their bingo card, right? May not have been a surprise to some people. I didn't know. I didn't expect it. But it was less about that, that he was giving the nominating speech than something that he said, something that he said during his speech. And see if you could pick up on this. See if any of this sounds familiar to you.
Over the last week, we witnessed the culmination of decades of dysfunction in our nation's capital. Partisanship and petty political theater have come to personify our nation's political landscape. And we know that there are powers on both sides of the political spectrum who want the same dysfunction for Texas. The revered Sam Houston, whose portrait hangs over my left shoulder, once said, "Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations." It is my firm belief that Texas, and particularly the Texas House, stands as an example to the world of how a representative government is supposed to work.
Wow, that sounded awfully familiar. I don't know about y'all, but that sounds very similar to some things that yours truly has said. We quote. I mean, it literally was on the back of the first T-shirt that we ever made, and I, it's interesting. I see somebody in the chat saying that they cringe to hear Dane and Sam in the same speech, but you have to dig through and look at when is the last time do you think that Sam Houston quote was quoted on the House floor? When do you think that is? I would suggest that perhaps it was never. I don't know that there's any way we could comb through that and find out. But the fact of the matter is, it's almost like, when Chip Roy got on the floor of Congress and asked the question about if the federal government isn't going to do what it can to secure the border, then why did Texas join the union in the first place? That is potentially one of those moments. That is potentially one of those moments. The fact that Sam's quote about Texas lifting its head and standing among the nations was one of the first speeches given from the floor of the Texas House of Representatives could perhaps be a signal. Mayhaps it is, and mayhaps it ain't. I can't tell you that. Cody Harris can, though. Just saying. All right, so let's get down to this too, because I want to talk about. Let me get to some more of your questions. All right, okay. Here we go. We're going to the grab bag of questions. Keith Erickson says, "Good evening, Daniel. Would you happen to know why Coffee Talk is unable to be connected via Roku?" I do not, but I show that we are streaming the Roku tonight. So if it's not working, we'll get somebody in tech to check that out. But thanks for letting us know. Okay. Let's see. Dolce says, if passed, will persons born in Texas but living elsewhere have a chance to return before the official secession? Very, very good question. This deals particularly with the citizenship question. And I will tell you, it's funny. I actually had this question. Was it night before last? Wherever I was. By the way, I spoke in Cold Spring Monday night. Man, almost. I didn't forget it, but I just didn't realize it. Feels like it's been some time between now and then. But I want to say that maybe that question came up then or somewhere else. But anyway, by the way, thank you to the folks out there in Cold Spring for having me out to speak. I really, really enjoyed it, and it produced probably one of my favorite Q&A exchanges of the year. It's gonna be a hard one to beat, and we'll talk about that. We do need to talk about that. Okay, so that being said, the citizenship question. One of the things that, and just a reminder for those that are brand new, once the Texas vote happens, we go into this mode where the Texas government has to address topics that are in 4 general categories. Okay. Number 1, constitutional issues. Number 2, statutory issues. Number 3, international covenants, treaties, and agreements. And number 4, negotiated issues. Okay. So if you're looking at where this question of Texans that are currently living abroad, plus the rights of those Texans, wherever they're living, you're actually dealing with it. You're dealing really across all 4 of those, right? I suspect that Texas is going to want to establish a constitutional definition of citizenship. I think that Texans feel pretty strongly about that they would want it codified constitutionally rather than statutorily. But you will also have to have some statutes that go along with that to enable it, to enact it. The final thing is the third thing, the international covenants, treaties, and agreements. You're going to have some international agreements, some treaties signed dealing particularly with the rights of your citizens, of Texans that live abroad and the rights of those people when they come here. But finally, the negotiated issues, and that one is going to be really interesting. And I think the citizenship issue is one of the ones where you could see a clear analog to Brexit, not 1-to-1 because there's no 1-to-1 analogs, but it became a major discussion in the Brexit negotiations with the EU about the rights of UK citizens living in the European Union and rights of European citizens that held an EU passport that lived inside the UK. And, they wound up having to come to terms and have a reciprocating agreement for the withdrawal. So that will be, if you're talking about Texans living in the United States, that's one issue. Other than that, it will ultimately be up to the people of Texas to decide post-Texit what our citizenship and immigration policy looks like, which is honestly one of the most beautiful things about Texas is that the power to make those decisions finally lays in our hands and not in the hands of the Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's and Mitch McConnell's and Senator Shreks of the world, right? We get the opportunity to make those decisions, and that's a lovely, lovely thing. Who's writing that in the chat? That's funny. Okay. Excuse me. All right, let's get down to it. We've got some questions that have come in via email, and let me get to these. Fun. All right. Okay, this one is from Tanya. Excuse me. Tanya was at the Capitol. I almost said at the border. I know that some people may mistake those two. Given the chaos at both, right? But this is what Tanya says. Tanya says, spoke with some representatives at the state capitol yesterday. According to their right-hand folks in their office, their biggest beef with the Texas movement is losing Social Security. Ah, yes, the old, they're going to let grandma die in a ditch thing. There has got to be a very clear answer to that, especially considering our state is somewhere around the 11th largest economy in the world. Tanya, thank you for your question. We're the 9th largest economy in the world, and post-Texit, wouldn't surprise me if we became the 4th or 5th largest economy in the world. But when you hear legislators, or frankly anyone else, use the Social Security question, what that tells you is really two things. Number one, generally they don't know how Social Security works. For them, it's just some of them it's just magic money in a box, right, in the mailbox. Others, there's a tremendous concern, right, because they paid into it for many years. Maybe they're not collecting yet. They just don't know how it works. But there is another group of people out there, and that is the willfully ignorant. Okay, so what I'm going to do, in fact, let me do this. So just so you understand, and this is not specifically for Tanya, this is really for anyone out there. If you don't know where to go find answers to the Texit questions, right? Number one, read the Texit book. Right? You can go get the book. It was, multiple time bestseller on Amazon. I mean, it's not like it's hard to find. You can buy it on the TNM's website. You can get it there. But if you don't want to buy the book, you're like, hey, you know what? I don't know enough about this. I don't feel like dropping money on the Texit book. Then don't buy it. Go to texitnow.org, right? It's the website that's on your screen right now, texitnow.org, or you go to the TNM site and click the Texit link, and there it is, right? It's not the Texit book, but this FAQ where it says questions about Texit, you can search, but I'm going to show you right now where to find it, okay? So the Social Security question, which, by the way, for many years was the single most asked question related to Texit. I mean, we got it everywhere we went. What about Social Security? What about Social Security? So, we took everything, we compiled it down, we put it in the book, but we dealt with, under the Health and Social Services category, we dealt with the questions not only of how will Texit affect Social Security recipients, but what could replace Social Security in an independent Texas, right? Because those two questions are really closely aligned, and I'll explain to you why. The crowd out there that loves to say, oh, Texit means that you're going to let grandma die in a ditch or whatever. Those folks, a lot of them don't really want an answer. They want an excuse, right? They want an excuse to do nothing, to support the status quo, to go along, get along, whatever, right? But there are people that are legitimately concerned. And so when it comes to the Social Security question, it's a pretty straightforward thing. You have to look at, and it's this way with many things related to the federal government. If you are a Social Security recipient or you have paid into the Social Security system, you can draw your Social Security and not live in the United States. There are many, 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 many people who cannot live in the United States off of what they get from Social Security and move to countries where those dollars will go farther. I mean, how many Texas expats are living in Mexico, in Central and South America now that are drawing their Social Security checks? A lot. There are entire communities. And you know what? That's just not us thinking of this, right? This is not something that we made up. This is literally federal government policy. And then people will say, oh, but what if they get mad at us and they cut all those people off? Well, number one, now it's not us letting grandma die in a ditch. It's President Puddin' Pop and his Marxist militia up there in Washington, D.C. that are letting grandma die in a ditch, which honestly, given the level of support for euthanasia among that crowd, they'd probably be happy to do so, okay? But let's be honest about that. There are political ramifications if they do that, and economic ramifications, because effectively what they're doing is stealing the money that people paid into it. And they're like, but what if they could do that? I don't trust them. Well, I don't trust them either. But that's why you have a question on here like this, right? That says, what could replace Social Security in an independent Texas? Just so you understand, if that is the decision that the federal government makes, there will be economic repercussions for them, not for us, for them. Because you have to remember, we already overpay $103 to $160 billion annually into the federal system already. And total payouts generally, I think the last time I checked the numbers, total Social Security or federal pension benefit payments, not just Social Security, but federal pension benefit payments, was about $74 billion annually into the federal system. $74 billion. Or into Texas, rather. So if those payments are $74 billion and we're overpaying about $103 to $160 billion annually, I remember my grade school arithmetic. I know which way the alligator's mouth is open, right? I know what that looks like. It literally means that if they cut off Social Security, it wouldn't be a problem. We could make good on every marker that's on the table and still have enough money left over to eliminate the property tax, right? Completely eliminate it and never think twice. And being rid of the federal government and federal regulatory accumulation means that we're no longer subjected to 2% GDP compression compounded annually, stealing 85% of our wealth. We see Texas take off to the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, and Texas becomes the most prosperous nation in the Western Hemisphere. That can happen. And it could very easily happen. We have everything we need. So let me tell you something. When it comes to taking care of the elderly and taking care of our veterans, Texas could do a whole heck of a lot better job than the federal government would. So, you may have retirees that want to opt out, but at the end of the day, the federal government is going to have to honor that agreement they made. That is an agreement they made with the individual that paid into that system. That is between those two people. But I'm going to tell you right now, if the federal government fails in its responsibilities, Texas has enough money to cover every single solitary dollar owed to those seniors. And, here's the bottom line. We'll just put a tariff on all of our refined oil going out of Texas, or our crude, or whatever goes out of Texas. We'll put enough tariff. And, just like Trump said about Mexico and the wall, we'll just make the U.S. pay for it that way. It becomes that game then of revenue. If the federal government wants to screw us over on one side of the equation, we will make it up on the other, because we have the ability to do that. So anyway, look, I would encourage you, anyone that has questions about Texas, look, read the book. If you don't want to read the book, you want to do it for free, go to texitnow.org. Right? There's the Texit. And it's just about every question you could think of, from the constitutionality of it to economic questions to defense and security, ag questions, and we add answers as often as we can. But that's what it boils down to. So, if you're legislators, if you're talking to legislators or their staff, that means they just haven't boned up on it. But see, that's your opportunity right there. That's your opportunity to go in. And if you guys, if you take the time and you study the issue, and I'm not saying you got to crack the books and do all, but if you know some of the core things, like right now, just from that piece of feedback, every one of or if you've seen me kind of roll my eyes every time I get the question in a Q&A at a speech, the Social Security question is going to come up. We already know the opposition is going to hit us with that one. Their project fear tactic is, you're going to let grandma die in a ditch. They want to scare seniors. They want to scare boomers. They want to scare people that are so close to retirement age or already drawing federal pension benefits that they will vote no on this. And the way you combat that is you combat it with the fact that they're lying. That, that's anyone who says that has no idea what they're talking about. And the fact of the matter is, Texas is a free, prosperous, self-governing, independent nation. It has no problems economically, fiscally, financially, dealing with any of that. I mean, honestly, we're about as economically resilient as you could possibly get. Remember, I think it was like 7 of Obama's 8 years as president, Texas was the only net job creator. And I mean, it was an amazing statistic that came out over and over. They would start reporting these. Well, we had net job gains in the United States on their economic report. And then the Texas government would fire back and go, yes, because all your other 49 were underwater and we produced enough to cover all of it. Right. So, I mean, if anyone has any kind of concerns about that, just bone up on the issues, folks. Understand the questions that they're going to come at you with, and be prepared. And at the end of the day, if you don't know the answer, say, look, I can't give you the specifics for that, but I know where you can get them, right? You go to texitnow.org and you find your question and you will get an answer. And I think you will agree that the answers to the questions are accessible and thorough and pretty well answer these things in total. So anyway, hey, thank you for that question. That was a really, really good one. Tanya, rock and roll. Okay, let's see. We got an email in from Anna. Anna says, please enter me in the drawing, #Texit. It doesn't work that way. I can't do it from email. You have to go into chat on YouTube or the comments on Facebook and just comment with #Texit. Okay, here is, let's see. Let's take a look at this question that came in. Okay, fun. So this is from Tyler. Tyler says this. He says, my name is Tyler Mattingly. and I'm a young man who plans to run in 2024 for State House. I'm sending this email to ask what tips and tricks you have for building a team and getting a campaign off the ground. If elected, I would become the youngest member of the State House at 22. I've never run a campaign before, but hope to become a stronger voice for conservative values in Texas. All right. Well, first and foremost, let me congratulate you for being willing to step up. This is a thing, something we said at the end of the last cycle, not this previous cycle, but the cycle before. Every election, every cycle, we want to run candidates. We want pro-Texas candidates. If you want things to change, you make things change. Like the legislator told me the other day, elections have consequences, right? So we have to make sure that we've got people running from the State House down to the schoolhouse, and that's just the way it's got to be. So, Tyler, here's what I would encourage you, or frankly, anyone else. If you're interested in exploring a run for office, we have got a phenomenal program. One of the folks that's leading our legislative team is actually going to be heading up this effort this go around, and it's the effort that we had with over 100 candidates sign on in the last cycle, which again was such a shocker to the Dallas Morning News. I thought the guy was going to swallow his. Matter of fact, I got hold that. I've got a Dave Lieber story for you here in a second. But look, if anyone is interested in running, head over to taketexasback.com. Click the Run for Office link, or there's the direct link to it right there, and fill it out, and we will get you in the hopper. And that's what we intend to do through Take Texas Back campaign and the TNM PAC. All right. So let me tell you. Thanks for that question, Tyler. All right. So the Dave Lieber story. Okay. So many of you may not know. But it was right after the primaries, I think it was. Dave Lieber, who they call him the watchdog at the Dallas Morning News, found out somehow that over 100 candidates had signed our Texas First Pledge, listed as Texas candidates, pro-Texas candidates on our website, and just, flipped out. I'm not saying he had a meltdown or anything, but I'm just saying he flipped out. He's like, how come I didn't know about this? I said, look, ask your colleagues. We've been around as an organization since 2005, steadily doing our work. And the fact that you guys haven't noticed is really not my problem. It does make my work a little bit harder when you don't report on us. But at the end of the day, that's on y'all. And so he wrote an entire article about the campaign, about how we had all of Abbott's primary challengers effectively sign the pledge, and two of the candidates in the lieutenant governor primary, and all three Republican primary candidates for ag commissioner. And we had a Democrat sign on, and I remember somebody who was running the Green Party. We had Libertarian. We had people from statewide office all the way down to local offices. And it was shocking. He was just so surprised. Well, fun fact is that he actually mentioned us in his column for what to watch in 2023. And I thought that was rather interesting. So they're watching us, folks. And so I would suggest that we give them something to see. You do that by going out there and doing all the things necessary to win. You keep doing what we've been doing, but you do it to a much larger extent, a much larger degree. And for those of you that are watching tonight, or if you're listening somewhere and you haven't gotten in the game, I'm going to encourage you to head over to tnm.me/vote, pledge your support, get in the game, right? Let's continue to shock folks like Dave Lieber and the rest of mainstream media, right? tnm.me/vote. All right, let me go over here and check our questions. Okay, this is a good one. I don't know if you pronounce it Jace or JC, but I know someone that actually, our friend, longtime friend's daughter, spells her name that way, and it says Jace. So I'm assuming it's Jace. But Jace Gilliam says, what do you believe is the biggest thing standing in the way of a Texas vote? That's a really good question. It's something that I wrote about, something I wrote about in the book. I talk about it, and I talk about the things, plural, that have been preventing a Texas vote. And so, just not to recap everything that's in the book and kind of crib off that, because I think things have changed a little bit. To understand why your question is so important, you have to understand that at the level of support that Texas has right now, if it were any other issue, we'd have already had a vote. It would have already been done. We would have already had the vote on this. But it is an odd issue for here. And it's not just for here. You've seen it as an odd issue many places around. So it is not, and you have to think of it this way. It is not politically unpopular. In fact, the numbers showed that it is politically popular. Not unpopular, right? Or not unpopular, but popular. It is politically popular. How do we know? Survey USA, not the only poll, right? People say, I'm sick of hearing, what about other polls? Well, I could take you all the way back to the first poll that we had when we started the organization, to 2009, 2010, 2014, 2020, and now 2022, right? Show you the steady progression, but I will not bore you with that tonight. But the tail end of the whip here, the Survey USA poll showed 66% of likely voters would vote for Texas to withdraw from the union. So that is a significant number. That's not an insignificant number. That shows something that is politically popular. It tells you that no one is really on the bubble about this. It is, by all measures, a supermajority. Even if you had a plus or minus 5-point margin of error, which there was not that high of an MOE on that poll, it would still be in safe territory for us. I mean, it's a double-digit slam dunk over the opposition, okay? So, this is not an issue that's on the bubble. Not only is it politically popular, but to a certain degree, it's politically expedient, right? For many of these people. We know that the Republican Party of Texas put not one but two planks on its platform. Libertarian Party had one on there many years before everyone else. And we know that there are a substantial number of Democrats by polling that actually support Texas, okay? So it is, to a certain extent, regardless of the vitriol and all the hyperbolic whining and crying and whinging from the opposition, by and large, Texans en masse believe that Texas would be better off as an independent nation, and in fact should be an independent nation. Okay, that's great. That's great news for us. So what's holding us back? What is the thing that is standing in our way? Well, all roads lead through the Texas legislature. And so in the book, I talked about how when you have the mass movement that we effectively have, the numbers, how is it that the political establishment is able to stand between the people and the Texas issue and continue to survive? And it gets down to this. Many years ago, the issue that we had with gaining Texas supporters was all about the issue of self-confidence, right? And encouraging Texans to be confident in their ability to govern themselves, that it could get done, that Texas, it was a reality, that there was a path to make it happen. All of that sort of self-confidence issue. But the issue now that is alluded to in the book is one, is one of self-discipline. And it's a big one because, we're the vast majority of people that are on board with Texas, not even the vast majority, just a significant number of them are going to have to do things that are frankly uncomfortable for them. They're going to have conversations that they initially thought were uncomfortable, but turn out to be, they're going to have to do things to wield political power. So I go to Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution that says that all political power is inherent in the people, okay? So by virtue of that fact, that this must be a people movement, but it's not enough to, this can't be one of those where everybody's running around with their hair on fire in this direction, that direction. It has to be very well organized, very well disciplined. And that is, if you want to know what's really holding us back, it's that if Texas supporters voted as single issue voters and voted as a block in every single solitary election until we had a majority of pro-Texas candidates. We would not have to fight a single ounce. We wouldn't have to expend a single bit of energy hardly to go out there and make Texas happen. It would have already been on the ballot. It would have already won. We would be well into our transition period already, and we wouldn't care about Biden economics or all that garbage. Okay. So, you know, if you want to know what it is, it's that too many folks want to reap the harvest without plowing the ground or working the crops. They want to reap the harvest. Hence, some of these messages that I see on social media, some of the hate mail we get, go, stop talking about it and do it. Well, I'm at it all the time. I don't know who you are. My guess is you don't do crap. And you're going to find that a lot from a lot of these talkers, a lot of these critics, is they got no sweat equity. They have accomplished nothing. They have done nothing. And at the end of the day, when Texas becomes a self-governing, free, independent nation, no one will ever remember their names. 3 generations from the time they're in the ground, no one will go lay flowers on that patch of dirt because they have done nothing. And that's just the facts. I mean, people are going to say that's harsh. I'll probably get some hate mail. And you know what? So what? You know, just another one on the stack. But that's real deal. Look, I mean, you guys don't ask me questions for me to powder your behinds, right? You come into the locker room to have a conversation with the coach. You're going to get some coach talk. And the coach talk is that sometimes you got to do things that make it uncomfortable. You got to stretch. You got to do things. But that's what it takes. You know, I've told my story many times. This is not what I expected to be doing with my life. This is not. But almost my entire adult life has been sacrificed. Everything that I ever wanted to do, my hopes, my wishes, my dreams, those things that I had, those went up here on a shelf, and that's where they stay until Texas becomes free, self-governing, independent, or the gravediggers pat me in the face with a shovel, right? Whichever one comes first. And that's why I say all the time, when we win, I'll go back up here and revisit and figure out, you know, and go resume. Now, with much shorter, because let's be honest, I'm much closer to my last sandwich than I am my first. But at the end of the day, sometimes you got to give up something of yourself, whatever that is, your hopes, your wishes, your dreams, those things that you saw, that path in life, that sometimes you got to just take some things and you got to set them off to the side and say, you know what? I would love to do this thing, but I got this thing that is going to have the lasting impact. Man, I got kids. I'm thinking about future generations. I tell people all the time, I don't care at the end of this if anyone ever remembers me. It doesn't matter to me. I want to be here long enough to draw air in a self-governing, free, independent nation of Texas. Just one breath is all I need. And if I don't get it, that's fine. But you know what? I know that by sacrificing what I'm sacrificing right now and doing the things that I do right now and doing all the uncomfortable things, that will lead us toward my children and their children and their children living in a free, self-governing, independent nation of Texas, free of all of this garbage that we're getting as part of the federal system, to live in a Texas that is a nation among nations. And, you know, that's the kind of mindset. I'm pretty sure that those people that bellied up to the walls of the Alamo on the inside to defend that thing, knowing probably full well, at least at that tail end, that they were going to die, probably had hopes and wishes and dreams of their own. That is not how they saw their lives ending. But they were willing to give their lives up to that last full measure of devotion for the cause of Texas independence. So I do it to honor the future. I do it to honor our ancestors. And frankly, you know, sometimes people say that I expect too much out of our folks, but I don't. I just expect our people to be cut from the same cloth that made Texas a republic the first time. I expect us to be Texans. I expect us to do the things necessary to win our independence. So if you want to know, that's it. And I know you probably thought that I was going to talk and say, well, it's the legislature. Well, that factors in there too, but it really starts by not scapegoating others and saying, look, if I do what I need to do and together we do what we need to do, then there's not anything in the world that's going to keep us from achieving independence. Nothing. You know, that old quote that you see all the time, if you want something done, you tell a Texan it can't be done. I had a good friend of mine tell me one time, if you ever want your kid to learn how to play guitar, put it on the bed and say, don't touch this. Texans are kind of that way, aren't we? So anyway, thank you very much for that question. Oh my gosh, I am way over time. Let me get to a thank you for some super chats. Thank you to Cryptic Spy. Here's toward my future as an 18-year-old. Hey, there we go. Our young Texans are going to be the ones that carry this torch for us. Once we gain Texas independence, they're the ones that are going to secure it. So thank you so much, Cryptic Spy. We appreciate that. And get in touch with us. We're firing off a college program, and my understanding is that we may be looking at some of the lower schools as well. So, you know, like maybe a high school program. Don't know, but we're starting with college. I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'm going to shut up now. All right, Jim Van Zandt. Hey, thank you, Jim, for your super chat, $20. And Dave Krieger, thank you so much for your $50 super chat. I really, really do appreciate it. All right, guys, I am way behind time, and I've got some drawings to do. So let me get to that really quickly. We'll draw for you guys, and then I'll share my final thoughts. You know, I hope you guys don't mind if I go into overtime. I'm sure you don't. Right? All right, here we go. We're gonna do this twice. All right. So we've had 78 entries. Thank you very much. Let's draw. This is for a T&M swag bag. All right, and the winner's Jim Tomlinson. Hey, one of our local leaders. Fantastic. Jim, be sure to send your name and address and that you're a winner to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. We'll be sure to get that out for you. And we got one more in the hopper. Here we go. Let's see who the big winners are. I feel like we need a drum roll. All right, and the second winner of the random swag bag is Kenneth Godwin. Congratulations, Kenneth, another one of our local leaders. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone. Thanks to our chatters, everyone who sent questions in tonight. I really, really do appreciate it. All right, it is time to wrap this bad boy up, and here are my final thoughts. So I mentioned a moment ago that I had my first speaking engagement of the year up in Cold Spring, Texas. And at the Q&A, at the end of the Q&A, we had a gentleman who didn't ask a question, but decided to go on a bit of a tirade. You know, he was a bit of a Debbie Downer. But he said something that I thought was, you know, I always find it problematic, whether it comes from someone like State Representative Travis Clardy or this gentleman or anyone else, when they accuse Texas supporters of cutting and running. My response to him was, as you might imagine, a little wound up because he wanted to talk over me, and I don't appreciate that. But when he accused us of being the kind of people who cut and run, or that Texas is cutting and running, what I said to him was this. And I know some of you get this, and I wanted to share it with you, but what I said to him was this, and it's quite simple. When people accuse us of cutting and running for standing up for freedom and independence, they're saying that the people who died at the Alamo, those defenders at the Alamo, were cutting and running, right? I'm pretty sure that was a bit of a slur, that, you know, the same kind of slur that the Mexican government and that Mexican army slung at them. They called them pirates and crooks, but at the end of the day, you know, it was a cut and run thing. It's the same kind of slur that was thrown by probably the British toward the colonists that signed the Declaration of Independence, right? Maybe even some of their fellow countrymen accuse them of cutting and running, right? But that's a term that was assigned, you know, by this person by his criteria to people like Travis and Bowie and Crockett and Houston and Washington and Jefferson and Madison, right? And what I told him is simply this, is that if that's cutting and running, then sign me up. Make absolutely sure. If that's cutting and running, then that's what I want chiseled as the epitaph on my tombstone that lays above my head when I die. Because that is an example. I don't care what if they want to say that we cut and run, so what? I don't care. Because at the end of the day, if that is an example of cutting and running, those people that I just mentioned, then you can call me that all day long. Right? You just sound like another pro-king Tory in the colonies or some Santa Ana fanboy. So, folks, don't let anyone ever take away from you the fact that you were standing up for what is right. Don't let anyone ever dissuade you from standing up for what is right and standing up for the freedom and independence of you, your family, your neighbors, and of Texas. Don't ever let them take that from you. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for me tonight. If a reminder, if you're not already a registered supporter, head over to tnm.me/vote and sign your support. And of course, while you're at the website, do all kinds of things. Volunteer, donate, become a member, do whatever. Additionally, I'll share this with you. Hot off the presses and something that is sending some of the leftist media into meltdown. On the 26th of this month, I'm going to be speaking at the Rally Against Censorship in Conroe. And today they actually announced that Kyle Rittenhouse was going to be the keynote speaker. So I'm going to be there. Our attorney that's suing Facebook, Paul Davis, will be there speaking. Dave Roberts, you guys know him. He wrote the Patriots of Treason series. Cassandra Spencer, who was an investigative journalist for Project Veritas. Justin Sheffield, who's a former Navy SEAL and author. And Kyle Rittenhouse. We're all going to be there. Space and tickets are limited. So I'm going to encourage you right now to go over to defiancepress.com. That's defiancepress.com and get your tickets. You'll go there to their website. You'll see a button there that says, get tickets or get info. You'll see it. It's at the top of the page. But go over there and do that ASAP. A good time will be had by all. Let's pack that place out with Texiteers, folks. Houston Chronicle's having a meltdown. All these media guys are having a meltdown. Oh, you got Kyle Rittenhouse and a secessionist. It's like, dude, say my name. You know who I am. Don't act a fool. All right. It is time, my friends, to wrap this up. Thank you all very much. And I will leave you tonight, not with my words, but the words I end with every speech, every live stream, and words that you heard uttered on the floor of the Texas House a moment ago. The words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. My friends, I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
If you